Hey, it's the Noob Cyclist at Intelligentsia Cup in Lake Bluff, Illinois. This is the Cat 4-5 race on July 27, 2019. And I'm back to show you that I suck and to analyze why I suck so that you can tell me why I suck at analyzing why I suck, if that makes any sense. Anyways, so some of the race prep I did for this. You know, YouTube is awesome for these races. You can see what the course looks like at your house before you even go. Sometimes they can scare you though, like this course. 2018's course was pretty wet, so there were like tons of crashes, and all the top videos were like 2018 Lake Bluff crash, 2018 Lake Bluff crash, crazy videos. So that made me a little bit nervous into this race, and you can see why. If you look on the right-hand side of these with this map, there's lots of corners, and a lot of them were narrow. This whole half this course was like 1.5 far widths wide. So one of the disclaimers here is that any of the noob alerts of other riders are not really meant to be disrespectful. Again, this is all really constructive criticism, and I really I'm hoping to get better. And there's really two steps to getting better, right? One is step one, knowing what to do, and step two is practicing those things. So step one, knowing what to do, that's why we're doing these videos. Step two, practicing those things. So, you know, I understand that racing is, there's really kind of a couple different aspects of doing well, and they all sort of impact each other, right? One is fitness. Two is just knowing the basics of, drafting and cornering. And then three is more of the advanced tactics where, where to attack, when to attack, staying in the front so that you're, not caught behind gaps, stuff like that. So some of these goals for this race specifically was positioning and cornering, right? Positioning, I wanted to stay up closer to the front so that I didn't get caught behind these crashes. And that was sort of the main reason for positioning outside of just getting dropped. But then the other thing was drafting. And so this whole video is going to be mostly like, man, you did not draft well. Oh man, you did not get good positioning into this corner and out of this corner and moving on up when you needed to. So, that's what we'll be focusing on today, basically drafting and cornering. And those things basically are knowing what to do and practicing those things. So one of those, that was pretty dodgy. Almost hit that AstroTurf section. But again, one of these things is knowing what to do. So if you have any comments on knowing what to do, like this guy on the left here, what do you do? Yeah, you can take the inside line and you can sort of bullet up to that point, but then you can also get in this position like me where I'm getting pushed out to the outside and then guttered and then maybe crashing there. So there's lots of situations where knowing what to do is sort of difficult sometimes, and practicing those things are even more difficult. So, in terms of cornering, this inside line idea is obviously super useful, and I've been trying to do that a lot more, of staying on the inside line. You just get better lines by doing that, and you can sort of, not have to worry about getting pushed out like I did on that other situation. But the other thing about cornering is sort of like allowing a little bit of a gap to form so that you can sort of take the line you want and not like be rammed into the guy I had to use wheel, which I think I was just a little bit too nervous of this race versus other races. And that's, where you get strung out fields like this where, when everyone's trying to take their best line, the field just gets strung out. It's all single file. Everyone's trying to take the best line. And that causes a lot of problems with drafting. One of the NorCal videos was basically calling this like an individual time trial where it was hard to catch a draft in this race. Then you get other positioning issues like this where he's about to go into gravel here. That whole gravel section, that's just gravel right there, and where that guy went, and that's pretty dodgy. So again, back to this idea of drafting. Obviously you draft because you stick behind a wheel to save yourself power. And I know that to do that, but you also draft to move up. So this guy here, right, he's going to do an effort, and I'm going to just sit on him and draft, and he's going to pull me up. There's a couple of situations in this race where I did that well. There's a couple of situations where I didn't recognize that guy was moving on up, and I didn't sit on his wheel. So situations like this, I could be still sitting on this guy in red's wheel, but instead I decided to sort of roughly stick next to this other guy's wheel, and then gaps form. And that's how gaps form, right, is that you sort of, you're not moving on up, you're not staying in position, you're not drafting well, And then you get into situations like this, which is probably one of the more risky clips of this entire race, where there's a decent gap ahead of us. And now I'm throwing, I'm only putting in 300 something watts. And I know these corners get a little crazy, so they're all going to start to slow down. So I take whatever line I want into that corner. You can see I zoomed into and out of that corner. Same here. By being in position, I can sort of zoom into and out of that corner, and I can take it pretty well at speed. But then, if you still have a gap and you can't you can't be drafting, you're still running the risk of dropping a wheel. So, as you can see here, I do catch up, but there's always that risk. And so the other situation where you want to really draft and position yourself better is this sort of false flat. This is pretty much the only spot on the course that I thought I could move up. That guy in the red could have jumped on his wheel. But that little false flat there was pretty much the only spot that I thought was wide enough that you could sort of move up or do anything on. Everything else was pretty much single file. Everywhere else was just, taking lines into corners, and then doing this where you fail the draft out of the corner. So big focus on when to move up is that sort of false flat area right here. So I do it well sometimes, right? This guy's going to put an effort in. Yeah, I'm digging a little, 800 watts. But if you're sitting and you're drafting and you're letting him pull you up, that's what I should have been doing a little bit more. And, could have gone with that guy there on the right. But, you got to really tag your wheels and figuring out, if that guy's going to be moving up, do I want to sit on the guy I'm currently on or not? And if you make that wrong choice, you're not moving up. So again, drafting on these corners was rough. I wasn't super exhausted after this race. Power profile was decent. I think my normalized power was 300 something watts, 301 watts. And then drafting here, you can see on the left there's a guy, and I sort of look over and I say something to him like, "Man, we both want this wheel, right?" And we sort of laughed, and then he stuck on that wheel, so I didn't really fight that. But it was sort of a funny time in this race because we both wanted that wheel. We both know that this is where you want to be drafting up towards, and so I just sort of bridged that little gap, which I thought was a decent way to finish out that false flat area. So as we're getting into this race, yeah, I'm sort of coasting here, but I think this is where I could have done a little better. Is instead of coasting straight up, I could have been putting a little bit of a dig into that corner, just so that, yeah, I'm not running into him, that the guy ahead of me out of the corner, but at least I'm closer. And that's where practice makes perfect, right? Because if you don't do that, you might end up like this guy, again, in the gravel, where, you don't want to run into the guy ahead of you, but you want to be close enough that you're taking it in his draft. And so, same thing here. If you don't do that, out of the corner, you're doing a lot more effort than you need to. So this is another situation where he looks like he's digging, right? I should be following that. I should be saying, yeah, I could move up a couple positions by just sitting on his wheel, sitting in his draft, and he's going to take this corner. Probably a little tight, right? So he probably lost a bit of speed into that corner. So maybe that wasn't the best wheel to sit on. I don't know. You decide. So, positioning, again, when to move up. This is the only spot to move up, right? So, should be jumping on this wheel. You can see he's making an effort to move up. I should have been jumping on that wheel too, because this guy does that instead of me, and you can see they're moving on up a couple different positions. So if I would have been on that wheel like I could have been, I'd be 6, 7, 8, maybe positions further ahead. Instead, I'm sitting here, 2, 4, 6, who knows how many guys ahead of me, not moving up like I should. And that main false flat area was sort of where you won or lost the race, outside of all the crazy stupid drafting and cornering, which, to some degree you can work on, and then other things like this where, if this guy ahead of me is gonna do an effort to move on up, just follow that, or do it myself, which I didn't do most of this race. So you can see here, it's going to get real tight right here. I almost crashed in between these two guys. And part of the reason why is because I wasn't drafting right. I could have been 2 inches off that guy's wheel. Nobody thought that they could even sit on that guy's wheel. So that's a position. That's, you know, a situation where if I was drafting properly, they wouldn't have even thought they could have done that. And I would have been sitting here like I did, where I said, "Hey, we're gonna crash if you don't, you know, if you don't let me have this wheel." And you know, they could have taken it anyways, and I would have been out of luck. I was behind them. So again, positioning, staying on the wheel. That guy right there, right? The guy in purple, if I would have sat on his wheel, I'd be at the front of the race right there. And here's another guy in purple. I don't think they're the same guy, but, you know, when these guys are moving up, I should be moving on up them with them. And instead I sit on this guy and, you know, this guy's wheel, and the guys on our left are moving up. So again, sort of knowing when to move up, and who to allow me to be pulled up by, that was really important in this race. So here's just countless examples of these two corners being really difficult. And then there's other examples where I just, you know, we're getting to the end of the race. All that effort gets, you know, the best of you, and you're not drafting the way you should. I should be right up on this guy. Yeah, a lot of this is sort of, you know, not really making any effort, 0 watts there. But then you get surges, and yeah, you risk being dropped by not drafting. And I did that over and over and over, and I think you'll see it again here, of just not being right on a guy, right in his draft. That cost me this race. This positioning thing too. You know, we're getting into the final laps here. I know I need to move up if I'm gonna place at all. I should be moving up in, you know, every opportunity I can at this point in the race. I need to be just throwing down as much power and just taking as much risk as I can at this point in the race, because we're about to be done. And I clearly did not do that. And so I think this is where the end of the race really happens. And there was a break from our group. And, you know, I should have been aware of what's going on in the front, because there was like 10 guys who, or more, that were outside of this group that I've been sitting on this entire race. And I just totally failed to recognize that there was a break. And so here, last lap, I thought it was, you know, okay to sprint. Of course, it's a super lousy sprint. You know, it's 900 watts here, not even close to anything I should be doing at my fitness level. But again, this is sort of a noob alert, because why am I mean, it's really a minor place. There's 10 guys or more ahead of us that already finished, so fail there. So again, thanks for watching, guys. You know, any comments that are sort of constructive, I do appreciate that. The lessons learned on this one was obviously positioning and drafting. When to move up, that was important. Staying in the front, being especially important on technical courses that are strung out like this. Awareness of the front of the race, knowing what's going on ahead of you, so that you're not sprinting for whatever place I got, which was not good. And then drafting, really practice drafting, doing a lot more group rides, a lot more road races. So, you know, just drafting closer to, you know, the guy ahead of me. And then, you know, even though there might be small gaps going into corners, you got to sort of know that you risk dropping a wheel, and you risk failing a draft out of corners by doing that. So again, thanks for watching. Any comments are much appreciated. I'll keep these videos, and I'll try to keep doing better so that you maybe see me on a podium one day. Thanks for watching.